The president's legal team wrapped up arguments in the impeachment trial, and it was a relatively short day. Now senators are preparing to move to the question and answer phase. But as Skyler Henry reports, lawmakers are still grappling with the fallout from the claims leveled by John Bolton.
Reject these articles of impeachment for our country and for the American people.
The president's lawyers wrapped up their opening arguments by taking on revelations from former National Security Advisor John Bolton.
Are you going to allow proceedings on impeachment to go from a New York Times report about someone that says what they hear is in a manuscript? Is that where we are? I hope not.
According to the New York Times, Bolton writes in his upcoming book that President Trump directly linked military aid to Ukraine to an investigation into the Bidens.
How stupid are we all going to look if his book comes out with extraordinarily relevant information 60 days from now and this proceeding is over?
The battle over witnesses in the Senate trial continues to heat up, with Democrats united in their calls for new testimony, while Republicans are split.
It is very likely that I'm going to conclude that, yes, we do need to hear from witnesses.
The House chose not to pursue witnesses that were available to them. I don't want to start a precedent of just doing it half-assed in the House and expect the Senate to fix it.
Some Senate Republicans have suggested Bolton's full manuscript be viewed in a classified setting. Others continue to push for a witness swap, with Bolton's testimony in exchange for testimony from Joe Biden or his son, Hunter.
I have a number of witnesses I would like to hear from, beginning with Hunter Biden.
We're not bargaining with them.
Democrats continue to say that's a no-go. President Trump has denied the claims in the Bolton manuscript.
We're adjourned.
Skyler Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
CBS News political reporter Grace Segers watched the Senate trial from the viewing gallery, and she joins us now from Capitol Hill. All right, Grace, I have to tell you that your notes are page turners, because so much of what you see is out of the view of the cameras, and what you were able to witness really is so compelling. So first of all, Grace, how did the mood inside the chambers today compare to other days in the trial so far?
Well, senators were really worn out today. I mean, this is day 7 of the impeachment trial. It really feels like everyone knows what to expect right now, and we're kind of hearing the same things, especially because the president lawyers kind of did a rehash of their previous days of arguments. So people seemed very tired. They seemed ready for this portion to be over, and I think that they're ready for the next phase of impeachment to start.
Well, how did the president's defense team's arguments today compare to what we've heard already?
Well, they're actually very similar to what we heard yesterday. The president's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, repeated a lot of what we heard from Alan Dershowitz last night, but he also added in a little bit of flair to it. He was very dramatic, really hammering it home what the president's argument is, and I think that Republican senators were very engaged by it.
And Grace, before we let you go, just looking at one of your last notes here, you talk about the last 45 minutes in particular of today's proceedings, and specifically a conversation that was out of earshot, but nevertheless you were able to witness take place between Kyrsten Sinema and Lamar Alexander. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So this was after the Senate adjourned, and Senator Sinema, a Democrat, she pulled Lamar Alexander, a Republican, over, and they were sitting at the back of the chamber in one of the chairs for visitors, and it really seemed like they were having a sort of intimate confab conversation where they were very engaged with each other.
And right, and so I'm sure you were trying to read lips, but we'll wait for another note on that. Grace Segers on Capitol Hill for us. Grace, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more on this, let's bring in Joel Payne. He's a CBSN political contributor, Democratic strategist, and former Senate leadership aide. Joel, great to see you. Thanks so much for being with us. What are the next steps here now for Democratic senators?
Well, Elaine, I think that Democrats certainly feel good about what the impeachment managers presented late last week, early this week. I think, they feel pretty good in comparison to, what they heard from Pat Cipollone and the president's team over the last few days. I think now, the goalposts have been set around the idea of witnesses and documents. And we know that Leader Schumer has been trying to apply a lot of pressure to those 4 Senate Republicans that they need to switch over to support that in order to get majority support. So I think you will see a lot of focus on where those 4 votes are. I think we have an indication that Romney and Collins and somewhat Murkowski are pretty committed to doing that. I think Alexander is that 4th vote that everybody's been chasing. But I actually get the sense that if they get to 51, you'll actually see a number of other Republicans jump over as well. We've even seen reporting that
really?
I do. We've seen reporting that, like Pat Toomey, for instance, has been open to a witness swap. I get the sense that more Republicans want to be seen as independent and moderate on this than maybe the president's team is considering here. It's good politics to be seen as somebody who wants to support a fair trial. It's something that rates very well. I know that polling shows consistently that about 75% of Americans want this. Even a majority of Republicans want this. So I think it's something that a lot of Republicans are going to ultimately decide to be on the side of wanting witnesses and documents.
So one of the main points, of course, we heard from the president's team was that he did nothing wrong, and yet there are current and former administration officials who have not testified. So from the Democrats' perspective, is that something that they're going to continue to highlight, the fact that you just haven't heard from current or former administration officials?
Sure. And I think that the Bolton revelation certainly bolster that case. It almost seems as if John Bolton is systematically putting this information out to almost be, crumb droppings to demonstrate that there's more here. And all of these leaks, these aren't coming from Democrats, right? Bolton's book was circulating around the West Wing and circulating around the White House. That suggests that there's a source in the White House who wants this information out. And so I think that Republicans are going to soon come to the realization that we need to allow this information to come out. We need to be seen as being diplomatic and reaching across the aisle here. I think the politics are going to get on the wrong side of them if they don't allow more information to come out here.
Well, if Democrats do not get witnesses, how big of a loss is that for Democrats?
I think it's a loss for Democrats in the short term in terms of actually being able to make a case here for impeachment. But I think long term it's problematic for Republicans. Again, the public interest numbers here show that Democrats have largely won the argument in the public about whether or not, there should be witnesses and there should be a fair trial. I think a lot of people understand the concepts of trial. People have been watching the People's Court and shows like that for years. And they understand you got to have witnesses. You have to have people who testify in documents. I mean, that's basic stuff. We've all been asked on jury duty. So I think that works on the side of Democrats in this situation.
All right. To be continued. Joel Payne, thank you so much, Joel. Good to see you.